Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in conversation this Thursday on Thought Provoking Thursdays with Atiba. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, and GovExec 96.3 WHUR, and the One America News Network. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Hey, Jesse.
Atiba, some initial thoughts about Carmelo Anthony in that case?
Initial thought is just sad, and my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. We've seen people, because we just saw Cyrus, Carmack, Belton, that decision come down with someone saying that they were protecting themselves, and Carmelo's defense was that he was protecting himself. And, my initial thought is there's a reckoning that's happening right now. And it's not just, I know I talk a lot about voting. It's not just about voting. And I wish that I had an immediate answer to it. But I do know that a lot of this is because we are not looking at each other as human beings. And I know that there are a lot of people in the African American community in particular that feel that way, and rightfully so.
I've always been taught when I was growing up by my parents that young Black men are targets, that the way in which we are seen, the way in which television and media projects us as less intelligent than we are, less hardworking than we work, less patriotic than we are. And yet, overwhelmingly on the news are the negative stereotypes, the perceptions, the absence of justice in many cases, the inability to speak for ourselves and articulate who we are as Black men. We get these examples that are sometimes deeply troubling. Some of them are just blatantly outside of the scope of human decency. You can see the nature of the discrimination, the nature of the racism, the nature of the, if you will, the male Negro phobia, the fear of Black men that drives a narrative in this country. Atiba, is there a way out to just see each other as human beings, or is this the context that we will always find ourselves in?
So I want to go back and say, because, two families are affected by this or impacted by this, and that seems to be the case too often. So I don't want to, diminish also the value of the other life, but I also don't want to diminish in terms of what led to all this. I think that it's all of it is something that we all as Americans, as humans, should be looking at in terms of, I feel like, when you introduced this segment, you mentioned that I was on BNC News. And one of the things on BNC News, it felt like too often on Black News Channel, we were talking about young men who had been killed. In that case, it was often by police officers, and how we are looked at in this country. Now, I'm going to say something that is probably not going to be very popular, but I feel that I can't say one without saying the other. And part of that is that how people look at us also is contingent upon how we not only imagine ourselves, but how we put ourselves forward. And I say this to say that there's been a culture within our country where I feel like that when I think back to the 60s and I think about wear your Sunday best when you went to march, and I look at how I see certain things today that I think necessarily in our best, ourselves in our best image. So I want to say that first. But the second thing is that regardless of what you wear and who you are, that looking at each other as human beings, one is just being able to look each other in the eye and being able to see each other from a heart standpoint as opposed to from a skin standpoint. And there's too often that we're looking at each other, all of us, from a skin standpoint, because there are too many issues in our tissues, too many things from our past, and we're looking at things in its present form right now without looking back at the past in terms of how we got here. That's why, Jesse, week in and week out, I'm asking and I'm saying, when we talk about voting and we're talking about the redistricting issues, that we have to look back to the past and remember and see how we got here, because too often we can point the finger, but often we're not looking back at ourselves, at our own reflection, and wondering, did I do something to get us here? And I know that in a large part that there is a culture, there is a caste system in this country that has placed us in a certain place. And too often, I feel like we are inserting and putting ourselves there ourselves because we continue to harp so much on our blackness that we don't focus more enough on our human beingness and about what it is to being human. And I know that's a lot to kind of try to unpack, but I just think that there are other things too that we all have to be looking at ourselves and looking at, why did they look at the president of the United States and Barack Obama and his family living in the plantation house, which is the president's house? Why do they look at him so way? Because they looked at him in a way that they had a hard time seeing his humanity, because he didn't look like the way that they want us to be portrayed, and the way that often in culture or what have you we are seen.
I want to juxtapose that against the first segment where we talked about the Knicks, because on the one hand, the nation is celebrating us. It's celebrating the excellence, resilience, the perseverance of both the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs. And of course, these teams are largely dominated by our children. Now, I'm 61 years old, so I can look at a 20-year-old man and say, our children, and I mean it, because that's essentially who they are. But then on the other hand, when we move beyond the sports page or beyond the celebratory moment of professional basketball, the politics of the celebratory moment are not as celebrated as the moments when there seems to be these ethical, these moral, these collapses that the criminal justice system often portrays as the images of who we are. We're just as much as Knicks and Spurs as we are anything else. And again, I am not pointing the finger or making judgment one way or the other about the young brothers who are and their families who are experiencing the tragedy. I'm only making the point that America has a duality when it comes to us. One minute they're cheering us. I'm sitting here looking at Marissa Hargitay
Mhm.
on the
Mhm.
bench
Mhm.
and at courtside in the basketball game, enjoying Law and Order and SVU every single night. And I saw some funny posts on social media saying, "Why don't they just go upstairs and arrest the president?" A special victims unit should know. He's sitting right there. Go get
I
him,
did not
Marissa.
see that. I did not see that.
And her co-star was sitting with her. It's like, come on, guys, put the bracelets on them. Anyway,
All right.
with that said, how we are portrayed, requires a consciousness. Atiba, you talk about that consciousness, how we carry ourselves, and exactly how we already know what the society is going to say about us if we find ourselves in any kind of controversy or running afoul of the law.
Yeah, and it's funny, and thank you for, I'm so glad we started off talking about the Knicks, because it's such a great story. But let's also think about, we've always been celebrated when we are entertaining.
Yeah.
We're it's okay when we're the entertainers, when we're entertaining, it's when those players step outside of that and speak to what's happening in the culture, what's happening in the country, what's happening to people, that then people say, oh, that's not your place. Your place is entertainment. So, it's or sports. And so, we saw that with Colin Kaepernick, simply taking a knee, just to say like, hey, stop, see us, see me. And so, but I look at we've talked a few weeks ago, and I talked about an instance or something that happened when I was in Washington, D.C. And then we've heard about what's going on in Chicago and other places around the country. And the reality is that within, whether or not it's not just portrayed, because the media is the media is part of it. The media does create this. I don't want to know if you call it an echo chamber, but shines a light on the things that are happening within our inner cities. But not enough of us are, I think, talking about how do we figure out how to stop some of what's going on within these cities. Because one of the things that's really tearing in my heart is these teen takeovers. And that's this, and I don't want you or anyone to think that, hey, I'm laying the blame on us, because there's been Plymouth Rock landed on us. But at the same time, it's how through faith, how through struggle, how through what we saw the Knicks do last night of not giving up to get that win, how are we pushing and staying together and locking arms together like we did walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge to get voting rights? How are we reinstituting and going back to that type of idea of being one and being together, as opposed to the individualism that this country creates, where it's me, me, me. But the country is stronger when we're talking about not just the Black community, the Hispanic community, the white community, the Asian community. The country is stronger when we're talking about we, and that when we are together, then we as a country are stronger. And I just want to just highlight something, because this week, just reading through some things, it's just really interesting when you look at this racial construct in America, how and why it was deliberately constructed to justify the enslavement of Africans and the displacement of Native American people by uniting a fractured European class. And this goes back to the 1600s. So what I like to do and try to say is, how are we going back and seeing how we got here, and not just pointing the finger, but figuring out how do we get out of it and how do we solve it? And I don't think we can solve it without going back and looking at how we got here.
It's Thought-Provoking Thursdays. We're going to go back with the Tebow when we come forward. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago Public Schools CEO Dr. Macklin King, who is Black, is defending district policies supporting African American and transgender students.
CPS is in compliance with all local, state, and binding federal law.
While testifying before a Republican-led congressional committee, King said CPS follows local, state, and federal law. She also defended the Black Student Success Program as the Trump administration withholds $8 million in magnet school grants over those policies. Attorneys for Carmelo Anthony, a Black Texas high school track star, are appealing his murder conviction. He was sentenced to 35 years for fatally stabbing Austin Metcalf during a fight at a track meet last year in Frisco, Texas. No charges will be filed against Chris Brown's security guard after he fired an air gun outside of the singer's home in California. The May 1st incident happened during an altercation with a woman outside of Brown's home. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Wild Rivers is now open daily with over 25 slides and attractions for thrill seekers and lazy river chillers. Visit wildrivers.com for great values on season passes and daily tickets. That's wildrivers.com. Wild Rivers, where there's sun and fun for everyone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A 29-point comeback Wednesday night at Madison Square Garden put the New York Knicks in the NBA record book. The comeback also put the Knicks one win away from their first NBA championship since 1973. A dramatic tip-in by OG Anunoby with 1.2 seconds left in the fourth quarter gave the Knicks a 107-106 victory over the San Antonio Spurs in Game 4 of the NBA Finals. Anunoby is the new hero in New York City with a game-high 33 points. The Knicks have a 3-1 lead in the best of 7. They can win the title with the victory in Game 5 Saturday in San Antonio. The Knicks were down by 27 at halftime and by 29 early in the third quarter. Erasing a 29-point deficit is the largest comeback in NBA Finals history. The previous record was a 24-point comeback by the Boston Celtics when they battled back against the Lakers in the 2008 NBA Finals. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where the overlooked become unmissable. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. We continue our look at what is happening and what is not happening along the Destination Crenshaw corridor. Last time we talked about the promises made to this community. Today we talk about the reality on the ground, and it is not pretty. Let's start with something as basic as a visit to the vet. Customers of the local veterinary clinic right next door to this studio are forced to park blocks away and carry their sick and injured animals through conditions that no pet owner or sick animal should have to endure. Why? Because the construction has blocked access to the vet's parking lot for years now. The vet is losing clients, the vet is losing revenue, and frankly, who can blame these customers for not coming back? This is but one example of a small Black-owned business being quietly strangled, and nobody at City Hall seems to notice or care. And the conditions along this corridor, they are not just an eyesore, they are a health hazard. Unsanitary conditions and repeated health code violations are doing exactly what you would expect, inviting vermin into our neighborhood, rodents, pests, the kind of infestation that does not stay in one place. It spreads into homes, into restaurants, into our daily lives for years now. Then there is this. The houseless are finding refuge in the construction cubbyholes and unfinished spaces left wide open along this project. These are precious human beings, to be sure, in desperate situations. But this is also a safety and liability crisis that the city created and has yet to address for years now. In our prior editorial, trying to save some space for grace, we did not call his name. But after a full week of running the editorial hourly, highlighting the myriad delays, business losses, health violations, safety concerns, and more, we have heard absolutely nothing from City Council President Marquise Harris Dawson. Nothing. Not a word. The council member who represents this district has gone silent. You see why we call this project Procrastination Crenshaw? And so I repeat, Crenshaw deserves better. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from Nitsa and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
It's Thought Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You are listening to Thought Provoking Thursdays and our conversation with Atiba on KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba, how are you, brother?
I'm good, Jesse. Good to be here.
Atiba, in the last segment, in order to come forward, you said that we first have to look and or go backwards. Atiba, help us understand your thinking in this space.
Sure. If it don't mind, I want to share Carter G. Woodson's a quote from Miseducation of the Negro. He says, if you can control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his action. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself with what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept an inferior status, for he will seek it for himself. If you make a man think that he is unjustly an outcast, you do not have to order him to the back door. He will go without being told, and if there is no back door, his very nature will demand one. I use this when I think about, a lot of the things that are going on and how often, the last few shows we've been talking about what's happening in the South and what's happening with redistricting. We're talking about, all these different things that keep happening. And while many of us can see and that we didn't bring this on, but what we have done is become so possessive in terms of the idea that we have a Black community, but we want to be recognized as Black Americans, not just as an American. And I'd say that because it's not just about, for me personally, wanting to be recognized as American. It's me thinking about my ancestors working in the fields and believing that they weren't seeking to be a free Black person. They were looking just to be a free human being. And so when I said in one of the earlier segments that within this country that there is a caste system that we're living in, and within that caste system, that if you look back to the 1600s, to slavery then and the colonies, that those people who were working in the 1600s were not recognized by race. They were recognized by their religion or their nationality. And that was until there was a rebellion. And you may recall Bacon's Rebellion. And I mention this because I want to go back to where poor indentured Europeans and enslaved Africans, slaves, revolted together against wealthy Virginia landowners who then realized the danger of a united working class. Now, if you bring that forward and you look at all these different things that are going on within our culture, within our American society today, and how they are breaking us apart, and how in some ways we are doing the breaking for them, as opposed to looking at how all of us are impacted and affected by gas prices, high grocery prices, etc. But when we're looking at these different issues, Carmelo, Anthony, Cyrus, I don't want to keep looking at and keep saying that, oh, this is an issue where you're killing a Black kid. No, this is an issue where you're killing a human being. This is an issue where you've killed an American. This is an issue where you're saying that we're something less than. And in some ways, I feel like maybe subconsciously we're putting ourselves in that category, as opposed to demanding that you see us not as a Black person. I'm demanding that you see me as a human being, the same way that you want me to look at you as a human being, because in some of their actions, what they're doing is not human at all.
Well, please know that I respect that. But in the same sentence, I have to say, well, good luck with that. Because has there ever been a moment in our history here in the United States where to be Black or to be in a position of slavery, indentured servitude, some form of sharecropping, some experience from those periods of time to the present where we continue to experience various forms of discrimination? Has there ever been a moment when we have not been American? When we have not defined what it means to be an American in its truest sense? Have we not, and are we not as a people responsible for the definition of democracy? Certainly not on July 4th, 1776, but certainly by July 4th, 2026, we have had and made a contribution to this country that has made it far more democratic than the founding fathers ever could have conceived. It doesn't mean that that conception is not fragile, but it certainly means that we have participated. I can't find the moment, Atiba, where Negro in America hasn't been more American simply by his and her struggle to make this country live up to the true meaning of her creed.
It is fragile, just like the democracy is fragile. Just like, when we talk about how, we are lamenting about how these districts became redrawn, but we're not looking back, in my opinion, at how we got here. And we got here because, in part, we took our right to vote for granted. And some of that taking it for granted, it was because those people that we elected who made promises didn't fulfill their promises. I just saw today that the Democrats are now getting split yet again on what should be the national message. Should the national message be about affordability? Should the national message be one about the promise of voting rights? And I'm going to say to Dems right now, if you don't figure out how to have a united message that does not just speak to one party, to one community, you have to have a message that's going to speak to the whole country. And the whole country right now is impacted by inflation. The whole country, whether or not you're a farmer or you're someone living in urban Chicago or in Washington, D.C. or New York City, all of us are impacted by these high costs. If we start going into like these other things, then you will lose this election again, and you will lose it because it will fracture the country the same way that living in Florida, I saw the commercials that were painted against the former vice president, painting her about talking about sexual orientation and transgender rights, as opposed to a message that was unifying around the whole country. First, you got to get the power in order to be able to make the changes you want. And in order to do that, we have to figure out how we're going to be more unifying. And I want voting rights. I want laws that protect our young people, to protect all of us in terms of police officers. And I want laws that protect the police officers. But what I want is for us to figure out how we're going to do that. And it is much harder to do that when you're talking about the whole, as opposed to just talking about the part.
We're having our conversation with Atiba right here at KBLA on Thought Provoking Thursday. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions The Michael's Daughter Foundation is dedicated to inspiring youth and resilience through storytelling, arts, filmmaking, and enrichment programs for youth and families in under-resourced communities and system-impacted individuals. The Michael's Daughter Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit providing free and low-cost arts programs to youth and families from under-resourced communities, both system-impacted youth and those affected by the incarceration of a loved one. 1 in 43 children in America have a parent incarcerated. 70% of those children are expected to end up in prison. Through filmmaking, animation, theater, and writing, they help young people express themselves, build confidence, and imagine new possibilities. Beyond the arts, they offer financial literacy workshops, emergency support, and scholarships. Because thriving takes more than talent, it takes access. To learn more about the impact of Michael Daughters Foundation and how you can be a part of the movement, please visit their website, michaelsdaughterfoundation.com. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
When you turn to the Employment Development Department, we'll help you get there. Whether it's support for you and your family while you find a new job, or the resources to focus on your recovery after illness or injury, we can help you move forward. From support while you bond with your newborn, to helping serve your family while your partner serves our country. Your EDD. We'll help you get there. For more information, visit edd.ca.gov.
Going to a World Cup match in LA this summer? Ditch the parking stress and ride Metro. With direct service from across LA County, it's the easy way to get there for just $1.75 each way.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Tired of being locked out of job opportunities and shut down by systemic racism? KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in fighting for the rights of Black workers, and we don't black down.